Hey, Sipsters. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. You know, where we sip, we talk, and we dive deep into the stuff that makes you think.
Cheers to that. And today, we're going international, answering a request from our amazing listeners in Taiwan.
You got that right. We got a ton of messages asking us all about beating the market. Apparently, our Taiwanese Sipsters, I think we've got some secret sauce or something. I mean, do we look like financial gurus?
I think we're more about the sipping than the guruing. But hey, we love a good challenge, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so to our friends in Taiwan, let's unpack this whole beating the market thing. What does it actually mean?
Well, think of it like a video game. You've got your high score right. So beating the market is like consistently getting a higher score than the average player. And in the stock market, that average player is a benchmark index, like the S&P 500. Or for our Taiwanese listeners, the Taiwan Weighted Index.
Right, so it's not just about making money, it's about making more money than the overall market consistently.
Right.
But none of that's super hard to do.
That's putting it mildly. One of the biggest reasons is this thing called the efficient market hypothesis, or EMH. It basically says that all the information about a stock is already baked into its price. So trying to outsmart everyone and find hidden gems. Good luck with that. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack while wearing a blindfold.
So even with all the fancy charts and algorithms, we're basically fighting a losing battle.
Well, let's look at the evidence. Over 90% of actively managed funds, those run by professional stock pickers, underperform index funds over the long term. We're talking 10 years or more. And even hedge funds, with their massive resources and brilliant minds, struggle to consistently beat the market.
Okay, that is pretty discouraging. It's like saying even the pros can't crack the code.
It's tough. And then you've got trading costs and taxes, eating into your profits every time you buy or sell. ETFs, on the other hand, are designed for long-term holding, so you're minimizing those costs and keeping more of your gains.
So you're telling me I should just chill out, buy some index funds, and call it a day.
It's definitely a strong argument, but there's another factor that often throws people off. Our own emotions. Behavioral finance studies how our feelings, like fear and greed, can lead us to make bad decisions. We buy high when everyone's excited, then panic and sell low when things get rough. It's a recipe for disaster.
So not only is the market efficient, but we're our own worst enemies. It's like bringing a butter knife to a gunfight.
You're not wrong. And here's another thing. Even those companies that seem like surefire winners can hit a wall. Competition heats up. Markets change. And what was once a hot stock can quickly fizzle out.
Yeah, like Blockbuster Video.
Yeah.
They were everywhere.
Yeah.
And then Netflix came along and poof, gone.
Exactly. Their business model just couldn't adapt. And that's why a diversified index fund can be so powerful. It's constantly incorporating the strongest companies and weeding out the weaker ones. It's like natural selection for the stock market.
So it sounds like the odds are stacked against us. Is there any hope of actually beating the market? Or are we all just chasing a fantasy?
Don't despair just yet. Remember, EMH isn't perfect. Markets are influenced by human behavior. And humans are, well, let's just say, we don't always make the most rational decisions.
Oh, yeah. We can be pretty impulsive. Especially when it comes to money.
Exactly. And those moments of irrationality, those times when the market gets a little crazy, well, that's where savvy investors can find opportunities. Remember the dot-com bubble in 2000? Or the 2008 financial crisis? Those were times of massive market swings, but they also created buying opportunities for those who could see past the panic.
That's so. It's about keeping a cool head and spotting those undervalued assets when everyone else is losing their minds.
That's a big part of it. But there's also growth investing, which is about identifying companies with huge e-growth potential, especially in areas like tech and emerging markets. Think about those companies that are revolutionizing industries. They might be small now, but they could be the giants of tomorrow.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Any success stories that come to mind? You know, those wish I'd invested back then kind of companies.
Well, look at Amazon. If you'd invested a measly $1,000 back in 2000, by 2021, you'd be sitting on over $2.3 million. Talk about beating the market.
Whoa, $2.3 million from $1,000. Now that's what I call a return on investment.
Right. And Amazon isn't alone. Apple, Tesla, NVIDIA, these are all companies that have seen incredible growth because they were pioneers in innovative sectors.
Okay. Growth investing, spotting market inefficiencies. Any other secret weapons in your arsenal?
Well, there's quantitative trading, which is super complex, but basically involves using algorithms and data to make trading decisions. Think of it like having a supercomputer. as your personal stockbroker.
That sounds intense, but does it actually work?
Let's just say, there are some hedge funds out there making some serious bank with this approach. Renaissance Technologies' Medallion Fund, for example, has average annual returns of over 66%. They were basically the rock stars of quant trading.
66%. Okay. That's impressive. But for us regular folks, what are options? We don't exactly have supercomputers lying around.
That's a great question. And that's what we'll be digging into next. We'll explore some practical strategies that anyone can use to potentially beat the market, from growth investing to value investing to even a little bit of contrarian thinking. All right, Sipsters, welcome back. Ready for round 2 of our market-beating adventure?
Bring it on. I'm all ears for these practical strategies you promised. You know, the ones that don't require a supercomputer or a degree in rocket science.
Don't worry, we're keeping it real today. So first up is growth investing. Remember those companies we talked about? The ones disrupting industries and pushing the boundaries of innovation? That's what we're looking for here. The Amazons, the Teslas, the companies of tomorrow.
So it's about spotting those future giants while they're still in their awkward teenage phase. But how do we do that? Do we just throw darts at a list of tech startups?
It's a bit more nuanced than that, but the core idea is to look for companies with strong leadership, a clear vision, and a product or service that has the potential to change the game. Think about the rise of artificial intelligence, renewable energy, or even the metaverse. These are all areas ripe for disruption, and the companies leading the charge could see explosive growth in the coming years.
Okay, so I'm keeping an eye on those sectors. What about those of us who love a good bargain? Is there a strategy for the more value-conscious investors out there?
Absolutely. That's where value investing comes in. Think Warren Buffett, the OG of value investing. He's all about finding those undervalued companies, the ones the market has overlooked or misjudged.
So it's like thrifting for stocks, finding those hidden gems that are just waiting to be polished up. But how do we know a stock is actually undervalued? Isn't that subjective?
Great question. Value investors look at a bunch of factors, like a company's financial statements, its assets, its management team, and its overall track record. They're trying to figure out if a company's intrinsic value is higher than its current market price. It's like finding a designer dress at a discount store.
Okay, so it's not just about picking cheap stocks. It's about finding stocks that are worth more than they're currently selling for. Got it. But what about those of us who want a bit of both? A mix of growth and value?
That's where trend and ETF investing can be a good option. You can combine the stability of index funds, like the S&P 500, for steady growth, with targeted investments in high-growth sectors through ETFs. For example, semiconductor ETFs like SOXX can give you exposure to the booming chip industry, which is crucial for all those tech innovations we were talking about.
So it's like having your cake and eating it too. Steady growth from the index fund and a potential boost from those high-growth sectors. I like it. But isn't there also a strategy for the rebels out there, the ones who like to go against the grain?
For the daredevils, there's contrarian investing. This is about zigging when everyone else is zagging, buying when everyone else is selling, and vice versa. It's all about capitalizing on those moments of extreme market fear or euphoria.
That sounds risky, like walking a tightrope without a safety net. But I guess the potential rewards could be huge if you get it right.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart. It requires nerves of steel, a strong stomach for volatility, and a deep understanding of market cycles. But hey, some of the greatest investors of all time, like John Templeton and David Dreaman, made their fortunes by being contrarian thinkers.
Okay, so growth investing, value investing, trend following, and contrarian investing. That's a pretty diverse toolbox. But remember those pesky psychological pitfalls we talked about earlier. How do we make sure our emotions don't sabotage our investment strategy?
That's a crucial point, no matter which strategy you choose. Understanding the mental game of investing is paramount. And one of the most important concepts to grasp is something I call investment agnosticism.
Investment agnosticism. That sounds deep. What's the philosophy behind that?
It's about acknowledging that markets are inherently unpredictable. And no one has a crystal ball. Even with all the data and analysis in the world, there's always an element of uncertainty. Black swan events like the 2020 pandemic can happen out of nowhere and throw everything into chaos.
So instead of trying to predict the future, we need to be prepared for the unexpected.
Exactly. Investment agnosticism is about accepting that you can't control everything. You can't control interest rates, inflation, or global pandemics, but you can control your reactions to these events.
Right. So it's not about market timing. It's about managing our emotions and sticking to our long-term plan, even when the market throws a tantrum.
You got it. Discipline and patience are your superpowers in the investing world. Now, another psychological pitfall to watch out for is overconfidence bias. It's that sneaky little voice that whispers, "Hey, you're a genius. You can totally beat the market."
Oh, I know that voice well. It usually shows up after a few lucky wins, and then bam, reality hits.
It's like that feeling when you win a few hands of poker and think you're ready for the World Series. But overconfidence can lead to some serious investment blunders. It makes us underestimate risks and overestimate our abilities.
Yeah, it's like that time I thought I could beat Usain Bolt in a race. Let's just say it didn't end well for my ego.
So how do we combat this overconfidence monster? It's about cultivating a healthy sense of humility and remembering that markets are complex, constantly evolving beasts. No one, not even Warren Buffett, gets it right all the time.
Okay, humility check. Got it. But what about those times when we see everyone else making money and we just want to jump on the bandwagon? That fear of missing out can be intense.
You're talking about FOMO, the fear of missing out, and it's a powerful force in the investing world. We see those headlines about Bitcoin millionaires or the latest hot stocks soaring to new heights, and we just want a piece of the action, right?
Oh yeah, FOMO is real. It's like that feeling when everyone's talking about a new restaurant. You just hate to try it, even if you have to wait in line for an hour.
Exactly. But when it comes to investing, FOMO can lead to impulsive decisions and chasing those get-rich-quick schemes that often end in disappointment.
So how do we resist the FOMO siren song and make rational decisions?
It's about having a clear investment plan, understanding your risk tolerance, and sticking to your strategy. And remember, there's no shame in missing out on some opportunities. There will always be another hot stock, another trend to chase. What matters is making sound decisions that align with your long-term goals.
Okay, solid advice. So we've talked about growth investing, value investing, contrarian investing, and all the psychological landmines we need to avoid. But what about the actual process of building a portfolio? Where do we even begin?
Well, that's a whole other deep dive. But here are a few key things to consider. First, think about your financial goals. Are you saving for retirement, a down payment on a house, a trip around the world? Your goals will determine your investment horizon and how much risk you're willing to take.
Right. So if I'm saving for retirement in 30 years, I can probably take on more risk than someone who's saving for a down payment next year.
Exactly. And that leads to the next point, risk tolerance. How much volatility can you stomach? Are you okay with seeing your portfolio drop 10%, 20%, even 30%? Or do you prefer a more conservative approach?
I think I'm somewhere in between. I'm not a total risk taker, but I'm also not afraid of a little market turbulence. I'm like a roller coaster enthusiast who enjoys the ride but prefers to keep their lunch down.
That's a great analogy, and that's the beauty of investing. You can tailor your portfolio to your specific risk tolerance and investment goals.
Okay, so goals, risk tolerance, and then?
Then comes asset allocation. This is where you decide how to spread your money across different asset classes like stocks, bonds, real estate, and even alternative investments like cryptocurrencies or commodities.
So it's like building a well-balanced meal for your portfolio. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. But how do we decide what percentage to allocate to each asset class?
That's where things can get a bit more technical. And it often depends on your age, risk tolerance, and investment goals. A general rule of thumb is to subtract your age from 100. And that's the percentage you should allocate to stocks. So if you're 30 years old, you'd aim for 70% stocks and 30% bonds.
Okay, that's a helpful starting point. But what about all those other asset classes, like real estate and crypto? How do those fit into the mix?
Those are considered alternative investments, and they can add diversification to your portfolio, but they also come with higher risks. Real estate can be illiquid, meaning it can be difficult to sell quickly, and cryptocurrencies are notoriously volatile. So it's important to do your research and understand the risks before diving in.
Right. So alternative investments are like the spicy peppers of the portfolio. Add a little kick, but don't overdo it.
I like that analogy. And speaking of diversification, that's another crucial element of portfolio construction. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right. The classic investment mantra, spread the risk. But how do we diversify effectively? Do we just buy a bunch of random stocks?
Yeah, that's not quite diversification. It's about spreading your investments across different sectors, industries, geographic regions, and even asset classes. So instead of just buying tech stocks, you might also invest in healthcare, consumer goods, energy, and maybe even some international stocks.
Okay, so true diversification is about creating a portfolio that's as diverse as a global buffet.
Exactly. And here's a bonus tip for our listeners in Taiwan. Consider diversifying beyond the Taiwanese market.
Good point. Since Taiwan's market is heavily focused on tech, It makes sense to branch out and get exposure to other sectors and regions, so maybe some U.S. stocks, some European stocks, and maybe even some emerging market exposure.
That's a great strategy. Diversifying globally can help mitigate risks and potentially enhance returns.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense, but I have to admit, building a portfolio sounds like a lot of work. Is there an easier way to do this? Like, can we just hire someone to do it for us?
Of course. That's where financial advisors and robo-advisors come in. A financial advisor can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs and goals, while a robo-advisor uses algorithms to create and manage a diversified portfolio for you.
So a financial advisor is like a personal trainer for your money, and a robo-advisor is like the automated workout app.
That's a perfect way to put it. Now, another crucial aspect of investing is research. Don't just blindly follow the hype or invest in something because your friend told you to. Do your homework. Read financial news. Analyze company reports and follow industry trends.
Okay, research. Got it. But where do we even begin? There's so much information out there. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
It can be overwhelming, but there are some great resources out there. Websites like Morningstar Seeking Alpha and The Motley Fool offer in-depth analysis and research reports. And don't forget about good old-fashioned books. There are tons of classic investing books that can provide timeless wisdom and insight.
Okay, so read, research, analyze. Got it. But what about all those financial jargon and technical terms? Sometimes it feels like I need a dictionary just to understand a stock report.
I hear you. The financial world can definitely be intimidating with all its fancy language. But don't let that scare you away. There are plenty of resources that explain financial concepts in plain English. Websites like Investopedia and Khan Academy offer great educational content. And remember, you don't need to become a financial expert overnight. Just start learning a little bit at a time and gradually build up your knowledge.
Okay, so start small, learn as you go. And don't be afraid to ask questions. That's great advice. But before we wrap up, let's talk about the elephant in the room, cryptocurrencies. They've been all over the news, and everyone seems to be talking about them. Do they have a place in our market-beating strategy?
Crypto is definitely the Wild West of the investing world. It's highly volatile, largely unregulated, and still in its early stages of development. But it also has the potential to disrupt traditional finance and create entirely new investment opportunities.
So it's like a high-risk, high-reward gamble.
You could say that. If you're considering investing in crypto, it's crucial to do your due diligence, understand the risks involved, and only invest what you can afford to lose. And remember, diversification is key. Don't bet your entire portfolio on any single cryptocurrency.
Got it. Treat crypto like that extra shot of espresso. It can give you a boost, but too much can keep you up all night.
That's a perfect analogy. So to sum it all up, beating the market is a challenging but not impossible feat. It requires a combination of smart strategies, a solid understanding of financial concepts, and perhaps most importantly, a disciplined mindset that can withstand the emotional roller coaster of the markets.
Right. So it's not just about picking the right stocks. Yeah. It's about making smart decisions, managing risk, and staying focused on our long-term goals. It's like running a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the ride, learn from your mistakes, and never stop learning.
All right, Sipsters, we're back for the final round of our market-beating marathon. So we've covered strategies, we've tackled the mental game, we've even ventured into that wild world of crypto.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier.
What's that?
Remember that question from our Taiwanese listeners? They wanted to know if we have the secret to beating the market.
Right, like we have some magic formula or something.
Well, I hate to break it to them, but there's no magic bullet. No guaranteed path to riches.
Yeah, if we had that, we wouldn't be here podcasting. We'd be sipping cocktails on our private island somewhere.
Exactly. But here's the thing. While we can't predict the future or guarantee returns, we can control our approach to investing. We can educate ourselves, develop a sound strategy, and manage our risks effectively.
So it's not about outsmarting the market. It's about outsmarting ourselves.
You got it. It's about recognizing our biases, controlling our emotions, and making rational decisions based on our goals and risk tolerance.
Right. So it's like that saying, the only person you can truly control is yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the world of investing, that self-control can be the difference between success and failure.
So to our listeners in Taiwan and around the world,
there's no shortcut to beating the market, but there's a smart way to approach it.
Educate yourself. Be disciplined. And don't be afraid to seek guidance from experts if you need it.
And most importantly, enjoy the journey. Investing should be challenging, but also rewarding.
Absolutely. And speaking of rewarding, we want to give a shout out to our friend Micky and his awesome YouTube channel, Mickytolife.
Yes, if you're looking for travel inspiration, whiskey recommendations, and a whole lot of fun, Micky's your guy.
Seriously, his travel vlogs are incredible. He's always exploring some new corner of the world, trying crazy food, and having amazing adventures. And his whiskey reviews are top-notch. He's got a real passion for it.
He's like the Indiana Jones of whiskey.
That's a perfect description. So Sipsters, head over to YouTube and check out Mickytolife. You won't regret it.
And until next time, keep sipping, keep learning, and keep those portfolios growing.